30 days of the NES Marathon have passed. Only one day remains. We've been on various adventures. We've passed through numerous challenges. But the question that's on everybody's mind is, what exactly will we be doing for this last day? Well, for this last day, we're going to be taking a trip back. Back to even before the NES was released. But a figure that was very much relevant on the NES. And a face that is honestly probably one of the most iconic of Nintendo's past. Guys, let's get started. Hello everybody, Slim Kirby here. Welcome to the final day of the NES Marathon. For this last day, we're going to be doing something kind of special. We're not going to start any new projects, we're not going to finish any projects. This is just going to be a little fun video where I play through not one, not two, not three, but 4 classics on the NES. Now, obviously classics is a very subjective term. There are a few games in this bunch that I wouldn't necessarily call classics, but they are part of a very grand series, and that is the series we are going to cover in today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing the Donkey Kong arcade games, all 4 of them. So, we're going to start with the first game, Donkey Kong. This was the game that I feel like really put Nintendo on the map. Maybe not necessarily with the NES, because like I said before, this game was way before the NES. But come on, we all know about Donkey Kong. We know about the plumber who runs up the building trying to rescue his girlfriend, jumping over barrels, grabbing hammers to destroy the barrels and other enemies, all in the objective to try to rescue his sweetie. And yeah, it's honestly, it's a really good arcade classic. I'm really a big fan of Donkey Kong. Of all the classic arcade games, Donkey Kong is honestly my favorite, just because it's the one that kind of it's the one that I definitely remember playing when I've grown up. I remember playing the arcade game when I was a kid, given it was like, you know, like 7 years after the arcade game came out, it was actually even more than that, because obviously I wasn't playing video games when I was 1 or 2. But, you know, whenever I saw arcade games at, like, different arcades that I went to, Donkey Kong was always there. I always recognized the hero looking like Mario, and I was very familiar with Mario at that point in my life. So, you know, it was a very recognizable arcade game for me, and I think it was pretty accessible for me, too. Because it's a very clear objective. You just need to get to the end of the level, rescue your girl, and that's really about it. That's all that really needs to be said about this game, honestly. And obviously, as a kid, I couldn't really do very much. I couldn't really even beat the first level, but, you know, my dad was pretty decent at video games, so I got to see him play through this, so it wasn't a big deal. I got to essentially see the whole game, or at least, when I say the whole game, I'm only really talking about, like, the 3 levels that are in this game. My first real, like, professional experience, I guess, with Donkey Kong was when the Game Boy game came out, Donkey Kong 94, and, you know, I was able to experience all these levels in a new way. And, honestly, the levels in Donkey Kong 94, even though it's a very puzzle-heavy game, the game obviously starts with the classic Donkey Kong arcade levels. 25, 50, 75, and 100M. And once you, you know, beat those levels, the real game starts. And even during those levels, they're not really hard levels at all. They're very simple. There's not really a whole lot of strategy to talk about there. In fact, like, all of the things that made the original Donkey Kong such a hard game, at least in my opinion, was stuff like fall distance and stuff like that. While in Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, that stuff really wasn't much of a concern. So, obviously, it was a lot easier for me to beat those games as a kid, or beat that game as a kid, than it was this game, because definitely the arcade version is a lot more difficult, at least in terms of how, like, Mario controls. I mean, hell, for most arcade games, you have to control a joystick as opposed to an actual controller, and I'm one of the few people who feels like that video games need controllers. I feel like the controller really does give you, well, no pun intended, but more control over your character, as opposed to just, like, kind of moving a stick around. Not to say that moving the, like, joystick around for arcade games is a bad way of doing it. Obviously, it worked for its time, because video games have been popular for a very, very long time now. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm definitely someone who really thrives with convenience, so that was kind of my jam for the most part. Oh man, I almost died right there. Okay, there we go. We've essentially seen all the levels. The NES Donkey Kong only has 25M, 75M, and 100M. 50M's not in the NES version of this game. But I'm going to essentially go till I die because, as you can see, this game's really short. I'm going to be going through these stages again here. I'll probably end up dying on this one. 75M, honestly, is the hardest level in this game, just because of the stupid trampoline at the top. But yeah, this game, it does come with more than just the one-player mode. It has a Mode B, where everything is a lot faster and a lot more difficult. It's basically the hard mode of Donkey Kong. I think like the first 3 stages of Mode B are actually what you play in Donkey Kong 64 when you're trying to get the arcade coin. I think. Don't quote me on that. That's probably not entirely correct, but that's what I've always thought anyway. And of course, it also has a 2-player mode as well, where you can take turns trying to get through the games and trying to get a higher score than your opponent. But unfortunately, we did die right there. Again, I really hate that trampoline so much. On the higher speeds and difficulties, it gets really, really fast, and it's like almost like too difficult to avoid it. At least for like most beginning players. I'm sure that any gamer with common sense can try to figure it out and use proper reaction time to get through it. But that's pretty much it for the original Donkey Kong. This was the first Donkey Kong game. I think it'll forever be a classic and probably the best of the Donkey Kong arcade games, in my own honest opinion. There are definitely others, though, as we're going to see, and the next game we're going to go on to is the follow-up to this game, Donkey Kong Jr. Okay, here we are, guys, with the second game of the Donkey Kong special video. Here we have Donkey Kong Jr., the sequel to Donkey Kong, I guess. It's, I don't know, it's kind of hard to call it a sequel. I feel like it's just kind of just another adaptation. If it was a sequel, it would be called Donkey Kong 2, but to be fair, there is a Donkey Kong 3 that comes after this, so I think it is supposed to be Donkey Kong 2, whether you like it or not. But the story definitely changes here. We do not control Mario in this game, and if anything, Mario is actually the villain of this game. You are controlling Donkey Kong Jr., who is trying to rescue his buddy DK, who has been captured by Mario. So honestly, I think it's an interesting spin on the idea. But as far as gameplay is concerned, gotta say, not entirely a fan of this one. I feel like this one's definitely a lot harder than Donkey Kong. And I thought even Donkey Kong can be kind of, maybe not cryptic, but, you know, for a beginning player, Donkey Kong can be pretty difficult, I think. But this game, honestly, like, I feel like it can be really, really complicated in some aspects, because, again, you have the fall distance problem, which what the original Donkey Kong had. But also, just, like, I feel like you have smarter and more dangerous enemies you have to deal with as well. Like, you have those little crocodile enemies, you have these flying birds that you have to deal with that drop eggs on you, which does kind of show you what some of the enemies in Donkey Kong Game Boy were kind of based on, I guess you could say. Because there definitely were those annoying bird enemies in that game. Okay, made it past them. Now, Donkey Kong Jr., from my recollection, actually has 4 levels as opposed to the 3 levels that the NES version of Donkey Kong does, which I never really understood why. I guess I probably should have talked about this during the Donkey Kong playthrough that I did. But I don't know, I always found it weird how the NES version of the original Donkey Kong only had 3 levels. Does anyone have any information about that? Was it just like data or memory issues or stuff of that nature? Like maybe they couldn't fit them in the NES cartridge or something? Or was there like some kind of other controversy involved? I honestly really don't know, and I honestly kind of wish I did, because I feel like that would be a really cool and interesting trivia fact. Okay, I'm trying to wait for this. Oh man, that was close. Gotta be really careful right here. And there we go. That's the 3rd stage. Now we have one final stage. This next stage is actually represented in the Game Boy Donkey Kong game. I believe the level where you finally knock out Donkey Kong Jr. Is like this in Donkey Kong Game Boy. I think it's 9-4. I think is the level number. It's the DK Tower at the very end of the game, and at the halfway point you take out DK Jr. and you kind of do it in this fashion. But as you can tell, we're trying to free Donkey Kong from his prison. Okay. Woo! Yay, we saved him. Okay, I was actually getting kind of worried about that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Donkey Kong Jr. Donkey Kong Jr. definitely is not as, I don't know. There are people who really do like Donkey Kong Jr. I don't think it's really that bad of a game. I just think the original Donkey Kong is superior. But Donkey Kong Jr. did have like a lot of love, especially from those like old arcade junkies who would often try to get like high scores for arcade games. Like, honestly, this game definitely is loved. It's just I don't think it's as loved as the original Donkey Kong for, in my opinion, good reasons. I don't think this game is bad by any means. Definitely not. But, you know, I definitely hear a lot more people talking about Donkey Kong than I hear them talking about Donkey Kong Jr. But there is definitely a lot of love out there for Donkey Kong Jr., and I can see why. It's definitely a different kind of arcade game compared to the original Donkey Kong. It's more like climbing vines and that kind of platforming, aside from just like jumping and trying to avoid projectiles. There are projectiles to avoid, don't get me wrong, but maybe not along the same lines as the original Donkey Kong, at least. But yeah, with that out of the way, I think we're gonna move on to the next Donkey Kong game. And if you thought this was a huge departure from Donkey Kong, wait until you see the next game, because we're gonna move on to Donkey Kong 3. Okay guys, it's time for Donkey Kong 3, and if you thought Donkey Kong Jr. was a huge departure from the original Donkey Kong game, you have not seen anything yet, because this is basically what Donkey Kong 3 is. You like the platforming of Donkey Kong? Well, guess what? That platforming is now gone. Instead, we have to worry about spraying bugs and Donkey Kong with bug spray. And that's pretty much what we have here. And you basically just have to get Donkey Kong off the screen in every level. That's how you do this. And that's pretty much it. I don't really have a whole lot to say here. well, I actually did it again really quickly. As far as stages, I'm assuming it's like the yeah, it's actually just 2 stages, because this is the first stage again. We just don't have... Oh, there's more bugs, though. I guess that's kind of what changes, I guess. Not the stages themselves, but the bugs. And obviously you do not want the bugs to escape with the plants. Aw, damn it. But yeah, honestly, this is like really, really hard and difficult. Every time you die, the super bug spray reappears, so you can use that to kind of help you. But still, I mean, this is just really, really complicated. Oh, damn it. So yeah, I can definitely see why people don't really like this game that much. Well, for one, Mario's not even the main character, or Mario's not even in the game. Now we have Stanley the Bugman, who's just kind of a nobody who I guess is protecting his plants here. And that's really all you need to say about this. That's really all this game is. I'm honestly kind of a loss of words of what to even say about this, because it's just so... It's so bare bones, and it's just like it's not really just that fun at all. I mean, you can say what you want about the original Donkey Kong games, like Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. I mean, there's not a whole lot of variety there, but even in just having like 3 levels, those 3 levels were interesting, and you actually felt like some kind of progression. And after you beat them all, you're kind of under the impression like, oh, well, what can I do? Can I try to beat these 3 levels again under harder circumstances? What's my highest score going to be? I mean, there's definitely feels like a motive to actually continue playing those games. Well, here, I mean, you do have the high score element, and, you know, things do get more difficult and stuff, but I don't know. Like, I just don't find myself as interested playing this as I was the other games. And it's just kind of a shame that Nintendo couldn't really capitalize on this. And I think it's just because they tried to change the formula too much, and then named it Donkey Kong 3 of all things, instead of naming it something different, when honestly, probably this game should have been called something different, because I feel like calling it Donkey Kong 3 is kind of misleading, because it's not really Donkey Kong, you know? I guess that's kind of my problem with it, if anything. But like, I don't even know what to do right here, because those caterpillars are kind of in my way. Guess I have to just keep jumping or something. Yep, that's what I have to do. Okay. That makes sense. So yeah, I really don't have much else to say about this one. I wish I could. I mean, it's an interesting concept, I guess, but it just falls short on being just straight up a Donkey Kong game. So I really don't see how I could really be enjoying this like as much as the other games. Oh, I died to the freaking insect exploding. Damn it. So yeah, I guess from here, I guess I'll just move on to the last game that we're playing. Now, I know I've been giving this game a lot of hell, but I don't exactly like the next game we're going to be playing either, because this one is... you'll see what it is. Okay, the last game we have is Donkey Kong Jr. Math. And it's math. That's basically all this is. This is math. It's a 2-player math game. And basically, you have to have 2 players to do this mode effectively, or essentially you're just fighting against yourself. And yeah, it's math. You just solve very, very basic math problems. So we need to get to 84, so what we're going to do is we're going to do 8 times 9. That'll take us up to 72. And that's divide, so I don't want to do that. Oh, damn it. I fell in the water. I died in DK Junior Math, everybody. I died in DK Junior Math. The controls are kind of weird here, though, to be fair. Yeah, we'll do that, I guess. Oh, I did it again! Again, these controls are so bad. Because I'm trying to jump over there, but I keep climbing the rope, and then other times I can't even make it over, so it's like really, really tedious and annoying. But yeah, you basically have to do this with a very basic operations here. And I don't think you can do 2 numbers, because I don't see a 0, so how would you just add 10? I don't really know. And here you just add 7, which there's 1 right here. And yeah, that's basically what you do. And then whenever you get the problem right, you get an apple for that side. But again, because it's a 2-player game, we're not exactly facing an AI here. So I'm going to actually hit select so I can go back to the main menu. And calculate B is basically the same thing as calculate A, although I think you can have negative numbers as well. So that's basically that. But the single-player mode of the game, or what should be the single-player mode, is this, where you basically do math problems here. And you can basically take a look at the type of math problems that you have. You have like 2-number addition, 3-number subtraction, 4-number addition, 4-number subtraction. You have basic multiplication tables. You have 6 numbers here. You have long division and even long multiplication as well. Let's just do simple multiplication here. Basically what you do is you just solve the math problem. It's that simple. You have to go to the rope where the bird is moving and move up the rope slowly so you get the right answer, and that's pretty much all you do. So now we need to get 9 times 1. There we go. I always love doing like multiplication tables and all of that stuff. I remember like I used to actually in our classes we'd have these like exercises called Mad Minutes, where you basically have to solve a number of math problems in a minute, and each time you did, you'd move on to the next one, and if you got to a certain point, you wouldn't have to do that anymore. So it was kind of a way to like really teach you how to do very basic math problems, so you could do them on the fly without calculators, and you know, it rewards you for not having to do that anymore because you succeed. You do all the ones you were supposed to. I always liked those kind of exercises because I felt they actually like kind of forced you to use your brain. I know it might seem like it's memorization, so you're not really learning that much, but I feel like it's a lot better than using a freaking calculator these days. I think it's freaking pathetic how people need calculators to solve things. It's ridiculous. Heck, whenever we used like calculators in our math classes, we'd get yelled at. Schools sometimes need to go back to the old ways of doing things, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much all this game is. It's math. I guess if you're a math nerd, you can find some enjoyment of this, but as far as a video game's concerned, I mean, I can't really recommend this, to be perfectly honest with you guys. I mean, I really can't. It's a math game. It's math. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Once you complete one set, can I continue? Did the game freeze? Oh, no, it didn't. Oh, no. Okay, you don't get, like, rewarded for it or anything. It's just you go to a different set and do a different math problem now. And that's really all it is. I mean, I can't really say anything else about this game. It's math. So, yay math. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do love math. Math was always one of my favorite subjects, to be honest. I loved math so much. I always got really high math honors in my school. People would always want me to, like, help them with their math homework and stuff like that. I always enjoyed that. I always remember specifically it was both geometry, or actually no, it was 3 subjects. It was geometry, algebra 2, and pre-calculus. Like, every morning while we were waiting for school to start, people would just be coming up to me and asking me for help with, like, every single problem for every single, like, homework question. And honestly, I didn't really mind it that much. It was kind of annoying sometimes, but I kind of saw it as a way to, like, make sure all my homework was correct the next day, so it wasn't really too bad. And I don't know, it was kind of cool to actually, like, see that there were people who were asking me for help and wanting to hear, like, what I had to say. It was one of the reasons, like, one of my first majors in college was teaching, because originally, before I went into computer science, I was going in to be a math teacher. It's just that I didn't really, you know, after taking some of my first lessons and classes about teaching, I just really wasn't liking, and I just kind of figured that, you know, maybe teaching is not what I want to go into, and I found that out to be really, really true, because when I was actually trying to teach, like, really advanced techniques, it just was not going well. But sometimes, just, like, desires change over time, honestly, so you can't really be too disappointed. But yeah, that's pretty much this game. Again, I don't really have much to say about it. It's math. It's frickin' math. But it is interesting that they did try to make a game like this. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. But yeah, math. Let's end this. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for the NES Marathon. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was fun playing through an entire month of NES games. I beat 6 games for you guys. That's 6 more games and 6 more projects I'm going to be adding to my Let's Play archive, which is pretty cool. And I also spent an entire day today doing this Donkey Kong arcade one-off that, again, I know they're arcade games, but all 4 games were released on the NES, and like I said, Donkey Kong is kind of a historical Nintendo figure, so I thought it was more than appropriate to do this as well. So even though these 4 games aren't going to get their own project entries, because these aren't really projects, let's be real, they're kind of just one-offs of these classic NES games, classic NES/arcade games anyway. They're not going to be getting their own project pages or anything like that, nor am I going to have them in the best projects video at the end of the year. But still, I thought it was a good way to kind of wrap up this marathon, especially since I had 1 day to spare. And it seemed like everyone really enjoyed the marathon. A lot of people are really looking forward to this to begin with. A lot of people enjoyed it throughout. Got a lot of nice and helpful comments from people along the way. Just remember, I know there were a lot of cases where I didn't have all the information, and I may have been stupid about a few things. Hint, the candle and dark rooms in Zelda 1. But like I said from the very beginning, I mean, I did not grow up with these games. I did not play these games. I started on the Super NES with Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Super Bomberman, Kirby Superstar. I didn't start with the Super original titles, so I feel like in that right, you kind of have to cut me a little slack in those places. But, you know, there's always going to be moments where it seems like I didn't really use common sense, like the Zelda candle example I talked about before. But, I mean, you look at other playthroughs. I mean, Super Gaming Bros, when they did their Zelda 1 playthrough, they didn't know about that either. And they actually figured it out during that playthrough. So that kind of stuff just happens. And people need to realize that when you're playing like an old game like this, you don't really think about that stuff. You look at Zelda, it didn't really have a great map system. Metroid, it didn't have a map at all. You'd think that like common sense things to be in a video game wouldn't exist in an old archaic NES game, and that's just kind of the way your mind works, I guess. But at the same time, I know that for a lot of people, these games are what started these series that we love today, whether it's Zelda, whether it's Metroid, whether it's Mario. And you gotta give a lot of respect to these old games because they did start the foundation, the building blocks for series that we absolutely love and games we absolutely love today. And that's kind of what this NES Marathon was supposed to be about, honoring those games and taking the time to go down memory lane and play them. So tomorrow I'm going to be going back to my normal schedule. I'm going to be starting a new project. It will not be an NES game, so do not worry about that. In fact, I'll go ahead and say it. Tomorrow I will be starting the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. And, maybe in the future I'll have another NES Marathon, or I'll have another classic game marathon. We'll have to see when it happens, because there are a lot of games I still need to play, and many, many opportunities for me to play those games. So, with that being said, I'm going to leave it here. This has been Slim Kirby. This has been the NES Marathon. See you guys next time. Later, folks.